Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for all things naturopathic, all things holistic. Thanks so much for your time. You know, for the longest time now, decades, I have been standing up in the public square and telling people to fire their medical doctors immediately and to seek licensed and regulated alternative medical care, holistic medical care. And it's easy, I think, given the socialization that's happened here inside of a monopolized medical marketplace for the last 110 years, to assume that, well, Dr. Glidden, he's a little off kilter, or he has an axe to grind, or whatever. Both of those things may be true. But the real reason that I have been yelling at people, advising people strongly, standing up against the overt, abject, automatic use of MD-directed medicine has nothing to do with grudges or personal anything. It has everything to do with medical philosophy and treatment outcomes. Medical philosophy and treatment outcomes. Let me see if I can line it up here for you so that you can feel empowered moving forward. Because it is, in fact, true that the most important thing that you can do in order to secure your health moving forward is to fire your medical doctor. And let me explain why. So, you know, somebody's philosophy informs what they do. Buddhists do what they do because of their philosophy, born-again Christians because of their philosophy, atheists because of their philosophy, Democrats, Republicans, communists, liberals. Everybody does what they do because of a philosophy, which they're either aware of, hopefully, or not. But nonetheless, it's the philosophy that informs somebody's actions. And inside of medicine, there are two distinct philosophies, which most people in the world are completely unaware of. The first camp, medicine is basically divided into two philosophical camps. There is the reductionistic camp, which is composed of the medical doctors and the osteopathic doctors. And then there is the holistic medical camp, medical philosophy, which is composed of everybody else. Naturopaths, the homeopaths, the chiropractors, the botanical medicine people, the traditional Chinese medical people, the Ayurvedic practitioners, and so forth and so on. Everybody who is not an MD or a DO, an osteopath, practices holistic medicine. And these are the two camps that we find ourselves with now in the 21st century, quite frankly, for the 20th, the 19th, and the 18th centuries also. All the way back in time, these two philosophical camps have existed. The reductionistic camp is the camp that's in first place, and it's been in first place since 1910, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But let's break this down a little bit further so you can feel a little more comfortable with these terms. Now, your medical doctor may be the nicest person that God ever created, but your medical doctor doesn't practice medicine. Nobody practices medicine. Medicine's a big umbrella under which many different disciplines hang, and those disciplines are divided into two separate and distinct groups, reductionistic and holistic. MDs practice allopathic medicine, and it was a stroke of marketing brilliance and propaganda brilliance when the medical doctors coined the term medical doctor, because they don't practice medicine. Nobody practices medicine. Medical doctors practice allopathic medicine, right? But because they co-opted the name, and they did that on purpose for a reason, in order to confuse the issue, we have been socialized to believe that they are the only real doctors. And that everybody else is, well, you're not a real doctor. You're a chiropractor. You're a naturopath. You're a quack, for goodness sakes, right? That's the subtext here. And it's time we all rose above it because it's just propaganda, lies, and nonsense. Now, MDs practicing allopathic medicine are brought up inside of a reductionistic framework. MD-directed allopathic medicine is based on a reductionistic worldview, which is informed by the science of Sir Isaac Newton. It's Newtonian in its foundation. And reductionism, Newtonian reductionism, argues that if it can't be measured, it does not exist, simply does not exist. So, since the soul has never been measured, nor God, nor the spirit, all of those things are fictions, and the body basically is a machine filled with biochemicals. There is no soul. There is no life after death. The body doesn't really have a good ability to heal itself, otherwise it would heal itself, and therefore nobody would be sick, so the logic goes. And because of this, illness must be managed with drugs. Now, this is a big eye-opener for most people when they hear this, and let me say it again and elucidate it a little bit more. Your medical doctor is trained in allopathic reductionism, which looks at the body as a machine made of parts. And when something in the body breaks, it's not the MD's job to fix it. It's the MD's job to manage it. So the heartburn is never cured, it's managed. The blood pressure is never cured, it's managed. The asthma is never cured, it's managed. The eczema is never cured, it's managed. The depression is never cured, it's managed. The anxiety and panic are never cured, they're managed. The insomnia is never managed, etc., etc., etc. Sound familiar? Well, you know, this is medical mediocrity as far as I'm concerned. It's a race to the bottom. But it's par for the course inside of the medical monopoly that has been in place now since 1912. So, because we've been socialized to believe that the MDs own the secret decoder ring to all thing medicine and everybody else is a back of the bus quack with substandard, non-medical, dangerous training, we accept their mediocrity. So nothing gets cured. The older that you get, the weaker that you get, the more drugs that you're on, the more medical procedures that you need, and then the last 10 years of your life are a revolving door to the emergency room, for goodness sakes. And while the medical doctors have been in exclusive control of the development and delivery of medicine delivered through this reductionistic allopathic model, life expectancy is getting shorter. Chronic disease is accelerating. Alzheimer's is through the roof. Autism is through the roof. Heart disease rates remain unchanged. Type 2 diabetes is accelerating. Arthritis is accelerating. Obesity is accelerating. Don't even get me started on influenza and coronavirus, for goodness sakes. But nothing gets cured. And this passes for the best medicine in the world, and it's not the best medicine in the world. As it turns out, reductionism, because it's reductionistic, is best suited for those things in the body which exemplify reductionism. So you have a bullet in your arm, heaven forbid. You have a broken bone, heaven forbid. You go skiing in Vail and you hit your head against a tree and your brain is bleeding inside, right? These things are the wheelhouse of conventional allopathic reductionistic medicine. And this area, these areas of surgery when it's necessary and trauma care, the complications of childbirth, are the only areas of medicine in which there have been really great advances. The stuff that medical doctors can do with surgery now is flippin' fantastic. Light years ahead of where it was 100 years ago. But for most of the conditions that most people go to the doctor for, the methodology delivers piss-poor results that we have all gotten used to because we don't know there are alternatives, which, by the way, are science-based and clinically verified, developed and delivered by licensed and regulated doctors. But, oh, they're not medical doctors, so let's deplatform them, let's censor them, and let's not take them seriously because, well, if we don't do that, then Big Pharma's not going to pay the bills. Now, the other camp is the holistic camp, which I'm a proud member of. Naturopathic doctors, NDs, are trained in the holistic method, as are every other type of medicine in the world, right? Chiropractic, Ayurvedic, homeopathic, etc., etc. Holism argues that the soul is real, God is real, that the vital force is real, that there is a spiritual energy which is inhabiting the human body, which is running the show. Holistic medicine argues that the body is so smart that it grew itself all by itself from a single cell into you, and by the way, it's managing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of biochemical processes right now, all of which are beyond your conscious control. Well, who's running the show? The spiritual force inside your body is running the show. And oh, by the way, when the spiritual force leaves the body at the moment of death, what happens to the body? It decays. Medical doctors have never been able to answer that because they don't want to go there because their whole house of cards would fall down. The body decays after death because it was the spiritual force which was holding everything together and running the show. And holistic doctors, holistic healthcare providers, are trained in the observation of the influence of the vital force, the spiritual force, inside and outside the body. And we observe natural law and develop and deliver therapeutics which support and promote, stimulate the body's built-in, God-given ability to fix itself. And this is the fundamental message of holistic medicine. The body knows how to fix itself, the body wants to fix itself, the body is trying to fix itself, but it needs help. So in a holistic doctor's office, especially in a naturopathic doctor's office, we attempt to cure the condition. But that's what you thought your medical doctor did, but you were wrong. Your medical doctor manages disease, doesn't attempt to cure it. The only thing a medical doctor can cure is a bacterial infection, and antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections are going to be the next bubonic plague, for goodness sakes, because antibiotics are the wrong way to address a bacterial infection. But that's a subject for another lecture. If most people were told this when they were sick, it would be a completely different world. Okay, Mrs. Jones, you have high blood pressure. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, here are your options. You can go to medical doctor A, and they have no idea what causes your blood pressure. They're not concerned with what causes your blood pressure, and all they're going to do is give you synthetic pharmaceutical medication, which manages your blood pressure, which your body will get used to over time, and then the medication will need to be increased, or a second or a third different types of blood pressure management medications will need to be added into the bargain, and you'll be managing your blood pressure for the rest of your life and then suffering the side effects of all of those symptoms of all of those drugs. And oh, by the way, the root cause of the blood pressure will never be addressed. But don't worry, your medical insurance will pay for it. Or you can go to a naturopathic doctor, a holistic doctor, licensed and regulated, and the naturopathic doctor is going to attempt to discover why you have high blood pressure and deliver a therapeutic which supports your body's natural God-given ability to fix it. The medicines will be short-term medicines. The intention here is to bring the system back into a state of health, bring the system back into a state of balance, so you don't need any more medical intervention. And the side effect of these treatments will be that your body will be stronger over time, as if the treatments are successful, they will in fact get to the root cause of the problem and cure it. But you're going to have to pay out of the pocket for it because medical insurance doesn't cover it. Now, which would you rather do? Even though insurance doesn't cover it, most people would rather attempt to cure the problem. And if insurance covered it, everybody would want to do that. But people are not aware of these distinctions. People are not aware of these distinctions because of the medical monopoly, which has existed for 110 years now. And before I talk about the origins of the medical monopoly, let me just say one thing real quick by way of clarification. When I talk about the spiritual force inside the body, it's not a religious conversation. It's a spiritual conversation. It's a metaphysical conversation. And I've always thought that it's the height of irony that religion is everywhere all the time, and most people on planet Earth are religious. Most are deeply religious. It doesn't matter if they're a Buddhist or if they're a Catholic or if they're a Hindu or if they're Jewish or if they're Muslim. It doesn't matter. They're religious. And they have a deep belief in life after death and the spirit and God and all of those things. And they don't understand that their medical doctor is an atheist. And that their medical doctor in their private life may be a devout religious person, but in their professional life, they're atheistic. Because MD-directed allopathic reductionistic medicine is atheistic. The soul does not exist. The spirit does not exist. If it can't be measured, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. All of those things are a fiction. They have absolutely nothing, nada, niet to do with health or health recovery or the genesis of disease for that matter. So here we are at the tipping point. And the silver lining in all of this coronavirus nonsense for the last 3-4 years has been that people are starting to see behind the veneer of conventional medicine, and they're starting to lose their automatic respect for the people in the white coats. And hallelujah. I've been advising people to get away from conventional medicine for 30 years now. 34 years. I've been advising people to get away from it. Finally, because of the coronavirus nonsense, people are actually starting to see through the cracks, look at the person behind the curtain, and call a spade a spade. Now remember, conventional medicine is great for trauma care, military field medicine, surgery when it's necessary, the complications of childbirth, but for everything else, it's a crap show. And the only possible thing you can expect to be delivered from conventional medicine is disease management over time, with no guarantees, by the way, and the medicines will make you sicker and weaker and more dependent on the drugs over time. And then the last 10 years of your life, it's not going to be pretty. That's the guarantee of conventional medicine. And the only reason that you put up with it The only reason that you support it, because when you pay a medical insurance premium every month, you're supporting it, is because you don't know there are alternatives. You don't. You simply don't. Why don't you know there are alternatives? Well, because of the robber baron's hostile takeover of medicine, which happened in the early 1900s. Here's the Cliff Notes. In 1901, the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research was founded. A person named Simon Flexner was on the board of directors. In 1904, the American Medical Association created the Council for Medical Education, and the AMA needed money. Enter Henry Pritchett. He was the president of the Carnegie Foundation. He took over the American Medical Association's Council for Medical Education. He was a non-medical person. He wasn't a medical person. Well, why did he get involved? Because there was money to be made. So Pritchett took over the CME, and he sent Simon Flexner's brother, Abraham Flexner, all around the country to do an inventory of all of the medical schools in the United States. And at that time, there were allopathic MD medical schools, there were naturopathic medical schools, there were homeopathic medical schools, there were botanical medicine, chiropractic, there were a lot of different disciplines. And it was the Wild West, and they were all vying for patients, and they were all vying for turf, and nobody was playing nice with the other person. Flexner went around the country, it took him 5 years, he did an inventory of all of the schools, and he brought back his list. In 1910, to the Carnegie Foundation, it was referred to as the Flexner Report. And the American Medical Association, in a propaganda play, used the Flexner Report to gin up support for their type of medicine, saying that all of these medical schools that didn't use drugs, all of the medical schools that didn't use the MD method, were quack medical schools delivering substandard dangerous training. And they sold that to the American public, who bought it hook, line, and sinker back in the day. Just like everybody bought the COVID nonsense today. Hook, line, and sinker. My profession didn't, by the way. I'm a treasurer of a 501c3 nonprofit naturopathic medical education organization that's called the Naturopathic Medicine Institute. We were the only medical association in the world, which existed before coronavirus, to stand up and say, don't get vaxxed. We were the only one. I bet you didn't know that. That's a big feather in our cap. And it's not because we're anti-vaxxers. It's because it was a ridiculous treatment, dangerous treatment, ineffective treatment. And we were able to see right through it from the very beginning. So, in 1912, the American Medical Association lobbied Congress to grant them exclusive control over who could and who couldn't call themselves a doctor, and Congress granted it to them. It was a hostile takeover of the medical market. And here are the players. And that's J.D. Rockefeller at the top, Pritchett in the middle, and Abraham Flexner at the bottom right-hand corner. These are the people who initiated a hostile takeover of the medical marketplace, and this happened in 1912, 110 years ago. It's before anybody that's alive now was born. So everybody that's alive now has grown up inside of this monopoly, which is so big and so vast, and kept in first place, by the way, not because of their treatment outcomes, but because of the pharmaceutical money and influence, which is legendary. Everybody in the world has grown up seeing, well, the only medicine practiced in my hospital is MD medicine, the only medicine my insurance pays for is MD medicine, the only medicine that they make TV shows about is MD medicine, the only medicine they do research on at my old college or university is MD medicine, therefore MDs must be better at what they do than everybody else. Plus, every time you go to a hospital, you're surrounded by millions of dollars of high-tech equipment and all these people in white coats looking like they know what they do. Medical doctor could tell you to jump off the roof of the hospital in order to fix your problem. Most people would do it because we've been socialized to trust the doctor. Well, finally, thank God, that house of cards is falling down. This is the deal, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't had a free medical market since 1912, I'm sorry, that's 110 years. And we desperately need one. And the reason that all of this coronavirus misdirection and, prestige happened is because of the monopolization of the medical market. It's the only profession that can consistently fail and maintain their position at the top. You want to know how bad it is? Okay, so your mother is diagnosed with cancer. The medical doctors initiate chemotherapy or radiation immediately. There's no consulting with the patient. They don't tell the patient what's going to happen. They don't tell the patient how much it's going to cost. They don't tell the patient the probable possible outcomes, positive effects, negative effects. They just sign them up for treatment. Just be quiet and do what the doctor says. And then the cancer treatment is ineffective and it fails. And your mother dies from cancer. But into the bargain, the last 2 years of her life were a nightmare generated by the chemotherapy and the drugs that they gave her. Her personality completely changed. Her life became a horrible day-to-day struggle with pain, most of which was from the treatments, not the cancer itself. And then she dies. And then you're so grief-stricken, you organize a 5K run and raise $20,000 and give it to the medical profession who failed your mother and under whose care your mother got cancer in the first place. That's how deep the socialization has gone. And it's time that you snapped out of it, for goodness sakes. There are science-based, clinically verified alternatives to allopathic medicine, which are science-based and clinically verified, by the way, and which have been developed and delivered by my profession. And at my website, drglidden.com, you will learn about them because it's time that you did. If you're smart enough to pass the driver's license test, you're smart enough to learn the basic fundamental steps that you can take right now from the comfort of your own home to get your body into the game of healing, to stimulate, for the first time in your life, arguably, your body's built-in God-given ability to fix itself. This medicine is not perfect. It does not offer the cure-all, be-all, end-all for all human ailments, but it is a very sophisticated, very smart system of medicine with a fantastic track record. You need to know about it, and everybody in your community, everybody in your life needs to know about it.